Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Preview. Let's call it what it is, guys. Last weekend, not so good. Our first losing week of the season. Adrian, Clarke, the EFL finally bitching the ass, mate. It's been good to you. It's been good to you, but the EFL started becoming the EFL again.
Yeah, you can't win them all, can you, Sully?
No,
It's
man.
look, it was fine margins, early sending off in the Coventry game.
Yes. Yeah,
it crippled their chances on both teams to score, and there was a late goal in the Rotherham Reading game that would have been a winner. It was an injury time one. Look, these things happen. We did our best.
Absolutely. Variance was very much against us last weekend. Mark O'Hare, I will say, in your defence, mate, insights, again, 2 out of 2, Lazio and Borussia Dortmund. A good week on the continent for you.
Yeah. Well, I gave it all back in midweek Champions League, so swings and roundabouts, isn't it? You know, you're up one week and then the next week is a body blow to the gut. So, hoping to get back on a more firm ground this weekend.
Absolutely. And I said it in our WhatsApp group, guys, if it was this easy every week, we'd all be living on our own islands in the Caribbean, right next to each other, one next to each other, communicating about our next bets.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. If it was that easy, we'd be this way. All right, guys, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Manchester United against Arsenal, Leeds versus Leicester, Liverpool versus West Ham, Sheffield United versus Man City. We're, of course, going to dip our toes back in the Football League, and Mark also has a European selection, and of course, as ever, weekend best bets. Okay, there's only one place we can start this weekend, gentlemen, and Adrian, I'm going to start with you first there. If it's an Arsenal involvement, I've got to start with you, man. Always got to start with you. But let's have a look at the betting currently at Matchbook for Manchester United against Arsenal. Super Sunday here at Old Trafford. 2.12, you can back the Red Devils. Arsenal at 3.64. The draw is freely available there at 3.75 at Matchbook. Arsenal getting a half a goal start on the Asian handicap, just under 1.84 and 2.75, 2 3/4 is the total, slightly favouring the under. Adrian, Clarke, let's talk about we can talk about Manchester United while obviously coming off that big win against RB Leipzig last night. Yeah. But the wheels are kind of coming off this Arsenal train. You know, this whole Arteta's back and, you know, the FA Cup success. They lose 1-0 at home to Leicester. Yeah, danger signs right now for the Gunners.
Well, I think they've lost a little bit of their mojo, no doubt about that. That was one we did get right last week on the unders for Arsenal against Leicester. They're just not creating anywhere near enough. I have to say that they battered Leicester for the first half, maybe an hour, and they were easily the better side, but they didn't score. VAR call went against them. Lacazette missed an own goal, and they were made to pay for it. The last half an hour, Arsenal created nothing. And that was really, really concerning. I think Aubameyang's positioning is becoming a really hot topic among Arsenal fans. I personally would like to see him tried out up front as the main striker, just for a few weeks, just to see how it goes, to try something different, because he's been so isolated out wide. He's had very, very few touches inside the box. I think he had one against Leicester. He had one against Manchester City. He had one, I think, against Liverpool. It's not enough for a player like Aubameyang. So I think they need to rejig the attacking configuration for this game, Arsenal. And it's but they've got an issue at the back. That's my concern. Going to Old Trafford, Manchester United were fantastic, by the way, in beating RB Leipzig. That was an awesome performance. And if they play with that kind of swagger going forward, and I do fear a little bit for Arsenal, even though they've been tighter at the back, because no David Luiz, I think he's almost certainly ruled out, and Shkodran Mustafi is a little bit ring rusty, and let's be frank, not the most reliable of defenders anyway. So yeah, looking at Rashford and co last night, I'm beginning to feel a little bit nervous about this one, Sully.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Rashford, there's kind of a similar argument to be made there with him being played on the left, and we've seen him without Martial in the last couple of weeks up front and up top, and he seems to be doing the trick. Mark, we're struggling with Manchester United to get them right at the moment, because we liked them at home to Chelsea last weekend. On the Champions League pod, you guys kind of thought that Leipzig would give them a game, so we've got to fall down somewhere here. I'm thinking we're going to give Manchester United a bit more love this weekend, though, because it's not a bad price to be getting involved in a team that clearly, if they stick to their current systems and Ole doesn't get clever, they should be winning this game.
Yeah, they should. Would I back them at the price? Not particularly. I still think there's an air of, they're very erratic at the moment. It's been a very big week for them as well. It's got to be said, Game against PSG, followed up by Chelsea, followed up by Leipzig, now Arsenal. I kind of raised a couple of eyebrows, my only eyebrows, against Leipzig in midweek when I saw the team sheet, because he obviously changed system again, changed the personnel as well. But he seems to be getting these big decisions right at the moment. So you need to give him credit for that. You need to give him credit for the fact he does seem to get things right against the big teams in the big games as well. But, coming into that Leipzig game, their Old Trafford performances have been very bang average, you could say, before that Leipzig match. 3 wins in 9 now across all competitions at Old Trafford, going back to July. They were very good against Leipzig, it must be said. But I felt a little bit let down by Leipzig myself. I didn't think they threw enough punches. I think United set up to combat them very, very well, sat deep, and Leipzig didn't really have any answers to break them down. But I do think there might be a slight edge of kind of recency bias here towards United. That price has been sort of chopped from 2.25, 2.3-ish into 2.1 overnight based on that result. And it's understandable, but I looked at their previous prices at home to Arsenal. Bear in mind, we've got no crowd at Old Trafford. They're 2.1-ish. That's the biggest price, the shortest price they've been, bar once in the last 7 seasons at home to Arsenal. So clearly the market does rate them or doesn't rate Arsenal. Adrian's kind of covered all the points I would make on Arsenal anyway. But the one stat that kind of stood out to me this week was I saw a list of all the Premier League clubs and the most shots they've had in one game so far this season. So United are at the top with 28 shots in that game against Newcastle. Leeds had 27 against Aston Villa last week. The most Arsenal have had in a match, they're ranked rock bottom with West Brom, just 13. And that's really concerning. Clearly, we know they're a work in progress. Clearly, we know there's been improvements from a defensive aspect. We've also seen in their games against the big teams that Arteta has set them up, I wouldn't say defensively, but more pragmatically. And they performed, they've got credit out of those games. Look at Liverpool, look at the Man City game as well. But the big stat still hanging over them is winless away at a Big Six team in 28 games since 2015. And that's the concern. So I think they'll follow the same formula they did in those big games against Liverpool and City. I'm not sure United like having to break down teams who sit back and defend, particularly at Old Trafford. So this isn't really a match to get me massively excited, if I'm honest. I looked immediately at the total goals line, hoping to get under 3 at a nice price. It's 1.67. I know that's quite short for some people, but I can't see this game featuring 4 goals or more. Only 2 of United's 18 against the top half last season featured 4 or more. We know about Arsenal's improvements in the back, and Arsenal games this season have featured the fewest shots in the box. That's in both boxes, basically, than all the Premier League teams. So I can't see this being an end-to-end thriller. I think Adrian might disagree on that, but at the moment, I'd probably go take under 2 3/4. But I'd like to see United's team sheet, because at the moment, I've got no idea how he's going to set up.
Yeah, go on, Sally.
Yeah, well, I just think on that was the way I could definitely get the sense where you were going there, Mark, because you wanted to pose United slightly, but you're not exactly going to get in bed with Arsenal right now. Under 2.75 even is currently available at 1.92. And Adrian, Arsenal definitely aren't going to play with as high a line as that Leipzig defence last night. They're definitely going to sit a lot deeper than that. And that was absolute mecca for the United attack when Leipzig were just that pushed up the field,
Yeah, no, they lost the ball in some really bad areas. And look, credit United. I mean, Fernandes came on, Rashford came on, and they were dynamite, weren't they? And before that, I thought the Pogba goal for Greenwood was a really good goal. I like the 4-4-2 diamond for Manchester United. It's a way of getting Pogba into a 3-man midfield and Fernandes too. And what that gives you is a 2-man strike force. I think that works for Rashford, Martial. Martial can't play at the weekend, so maybe Rashford and Greenwood. You've also got Cavani and Martial to come on off the bench when both are available. And Van der Beek is a very good backup to Fernandes or Paul Pogba, and you've still got 2 hard-working midfielders. For me, that's their best system, and I would expect a repeat, really. From Arsenal's point of view, I just want to see them. I'm going to coin a Wengerism here. Take the handbrake off a little bit. And take the handbrake off. Play with a little bit more freedom. There's so much structure, so much sort of organisation on and off the ball that they've become a bit predictable. And I'm hoping that Mikel Arteta's message might change a little bit for this weekend, particularly with a slightly weakened defence. He might step onto the front foot a touch more, in my opinion, rather than just looking to stay in the game. So that's where I'm going with it. So both teams to score interests me. It's not a big price, 1.7, but it has come in the last 6 times in this fixture at Old Trafford. Arsenal do normally score at Old Trafford. They don't win there, but they usually get at least one goal, and I think they can this time. But for me, United are the favourites, even if the price isn't brilliant. 2.12. I know where Mark's coming from, but they have to be considered favourites after what we saw last night, and of course they will get that extra day's rest. Yeah,
I'm kind of conflicted now. If we're saying both teams to score and I want to back the unders here, it's like it might be one we might actually just come back to. We'll maybe have another discussion about this in a while, because look, if it lands on one way,
we're just covering all bases.
Covering all bases.
Take your pick.
A bit of disagreement is never a bad thing, though. So we'll come back to that maybe at our bet recap stage. Right, let's move on to a potentially fascinating game, Marco, here. At Ellen Road, Leeds United against Leicester. This is on the Monday night kickoff, so obviously all these games are spaced out each weekend, which is either a good or a bad thing, whichever way you want to look at it. Very, very tight in the betting right now. Leeds United 2.7, Leicester City at 2.71. The draw is available at 3.68. Plus 0.0, which is another word for draw no bet, at 1.99 for Leeds, 1.96 for Leicester. That's a funny one, Mark, given that Leicester are actually outsiders in the match odds. But look, it's Thursday morning. Those markets will settle down. 2.75 is the total. And Mark, I think this is a fascinating, potentially tactical one. We don't want to get too much into the narrative of Bielsa versus Rodgers here. But Leeds have dominated possession in every game, even against Manchester City and Liverpool, which I found was fascinating. Nobody wins the possession battle there. But sometimes you wonder against Leicester at home, will that even be enough, though? Because Leicester do play with a pretty deep back four as well. So what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, really interesting game. I really like Leeds. I've liked them all season. I've liked them since they've been promoted. I've liked them for 2 years, to be honest. They were miles ahead of the rest in the Championship, and they were very unfortunate not to get promoted the first season. Proved it things right last year. But not massively surprised by how quickly they've adjusted to the Premier League. I felt they were capable of giving Villa a game last week. Villa there to be shot at, really, but they didn't play too badly. Leeds were just brilliant yet again, and they showed that they're well capable of finishing in the top half. Possibly, it's not even individually, it's just collectively. They're so in sync, they're so well drilled. Individuals almost don't seem to matter, and I think we were a little bit kind of cautious around Leeds last week because of Calvin Phillips' absence. Cooper was missing as well, but I'm going to butcher his name, Stroik. He came in, had to go off. Young Jamie Shackleton came on. You just wouldn't know the difference between any of them, really, because they're just so well drilled. They're so clever in how they play as well. And also, I think most importantly, there's been a lot of sort of talk in the last couple of weeks about how Leeds can last the pace. But this is a 38-game season. Last year it was 46, although it was interrupted. They're getting more time to rest and recover. They're not playing twice a week at the moment. They're playing with rest and recovery built in. And Bielsa having plenty of time now to plan his attack against the opposition as well. I think the schedule is actually quite kind for Leeds, and I think that's kind of going to spell trouble for a few teams. Leicester particularly going away to Athens on Thursday night as well. So they're all kind of variables you have to consider. And I kind of looked at the price, and it's quite interesting to see them as a pick 'em really in the match odds. But Leeds at even money off a scratch start, that appeals to me. They've already played Liverpool, they've played City, they've played Wolves. So Leicester's not going to faze them. They played Villa last week, who'd won 4 from 4. I had 27 shots in that game. So if you look at the data indicators, they're bang in line in terms of a league position where the data says they should be. And I've said for a few weeks now, I have got reservations about Leicester. I know they got that win last week. Adrian talked about the game against Arsenal, so I won't need to. But, Lacazette missed a sitter there. They had a goal ruled out as well. And I just think the results have slightly flattered them this season. Take out the penalties, the own goals, the deflections. They've not been as good as those results seem to suggest. And whilst you look at their away record, it's really good actually this season, in fairness to Leicester. I just think this Leeds team are there to sort of take them down a peg or two. And I think even money, kind of a draw no bet game is massively appealing to me. Their underlying numbers Leeds have probably been inflated. And sorry, I'm losing my trail of thought, but kind of crossing over into two markets, because I was also kind of looking towards the under 3 goals market as well. But again, it's probably too short at 1.7 to go near. The market is always expecting high scoring games in Leeds matches at the moment. I don't necessarily agree. I think their numbers have been inflated by the Liverpool and City games, and Leicester themselves actually featuring the fewest open play opportunities according to expected goals. along with Burnley this season. So, only Arsenal, Wolves and West Brom's matches are featuring fewer shots in the box as well. So, I think it might be a tactical battle, but I give Leeds the edge.
Brendan Rodgers is going to love this. He's going to absolutely relish. You know what he's like. He's just. Yeah. I mean, he was in dreamland, wasn't he? Sort of outfoxing Mikel Arteta the other night in the second half, finding a way to win. And I do think the winning goal was really clever, with Under making a run off Granit Xhaka, who dropped into the centre half position. It was smart, and because he'd done it once before and not got in, and then he did it again, and it proved to be the key moment for Leicester. I do agree with Mark. For Leicester, I wasn't blown away by them. They did defend well, but they didn't offer that much in the game, in my opinion. And they've been the most clinical side in the division. That's worth pointing out. I think they've scored with a third of their efforts on goal that have found the back of the net.
They're not exactly swashbuckling style of Brendan Rodgers of old. There seem to be a real tactical nose there.
It's unsustainable, isn't it? You can't have that kind of strike rate over a long period of time. Yeah. So I feel that sooner rather than later the goals might begin to dry up for Leicester City. I like Leeds in this game. I like them at the price. I like them because Leicester have to go to Greece. I think that is a biggie as well. They played pretty much a full strength side in the Europa League last week, so I would imagine it'd be a similar story tonight. So yeah, I do like Leeds. They create big chances. Bamford is just one of those strikers that's on a hot streak, but it's not just him. Jack Harrison has been fantastic in my opinion when he's played. Clarke making those runs from midfield. So yeah, look, I'm going in on Leeds here, similarly to Mark. I mean, 2.7, aren't they, to win, just to win the game? But the draw no bet option is very sensible.
Yeah, you'd wonder with Bielsa, like he's getting Patrick Bamford to score multiple goals in the Premier League. Like it's the guy's obviously, there's a reason he's a god up there in Yorkshire.
And on the travelling note, Leicester are not an unfit side. But Leeds are the fittest side in the division. We've covered this before. They run further than anyone else. When you're tired, when you're a bit leggy from that long trip to Greece on a Thursday night, the last team you want to play is Leeds. Let me tell you. Yeah. So yeah, I think that could be a factor.
All right, a consensus on that one. Leeds plus 0.0. In other words, as I said, draw no bet. If it's a draw, you get your money back. I think that covers us there, Mark, quite nicely. 1.99. It probably should drift to evens, hopefully. Post recording. Right, gentlemen, let's move on. Let's talk about Liverpool and West Ham next. And current betting at the time of recording at Matchbook, you can back Liverpool. They're just under 1.4. West Ham at 8.2. The draw at 5.4. West Ham getting a 1.25 goal start at good odds against their 2.05, and 3.25 is the total, slightly favouring the over. Adrian, with Liverpool, like we know that there's more in them. They're kind of stuttering about the moment. They're still second in the table. We saw they arrested a couple of key players against Midtjylland on Tuesday night. When do we see them get going? I think West Ham probably do have a goal in them here, possibly, to maybe have a look at the totals about, but that total is quite high. What are you thinking of this one?
It's a hard one. I think because of Mikel Antonio's injury doubt. I think when Antonio leads the line for West Ham, he's absolutely talismanic figure, and he can make the difference. I think if he's missing, West Ham will lose more than just one player. If you understand where I'm coming from, I think that Liverpool would be overwhelming favourites to win handily, maybe without Mikel Antonio. So that's something to consider. Liverpool, well, Salah and Mane are among the three most. Basically, in terms of the most shots so far this season, I think Salah's had the most, along with Harry Kane, and Mane's in there alongside them. They've both had a lot of efforts on goal. They're getting into the right positions. You do feel like it's a matter of time before they start to overwhelm someone. But West Ham, in this 5-4-1 setup, are defending really nicely, actually, and they're not giving that much away, even against City last weekend. For an hour, they were very good against City, and then they started to have problems, ironically, after, well, I don't think it's ironic. I think it's not a coincidence at all that after Antonio went off, they began to have to absorb more pressure. And they defended, by and large, pretty well. They protected Fabianski. So no, I think West Ham are more than capable of keeping this one tight, actually. A little bit like Sheff United did last time out at Anfield. They didn't blow the blades away, did they, Liverpool? And I see a similar type of victory for Liverpool this time around. I think they'll win the game, but I don't think we're looking at a 3 or 4 goal margin. West Ham have earned a bit of respect, I think.
Mark, in agreement on this one?
Yeah, for sure. Liverpool have got problems coming into this game. We know about Van Dijk. Matip is touch and go. I'd say he's probably more unlikely to play than likely, and Fabinho went off midweek as well. So Klopp said he didn't know who's going to be available this weekend. He had to bring on a 19-year-old Reece Williams to partner Gomez at the back against Midtjylland midweek. He was on loan at Kidderminster in the 6th tier last season. They have Atalanta in midweek as well in the Champions League.
It's going to be some cracker. That's going to be some cracker. Can't wait for that one.
Yeah, it'll be brilliant. But Klopp said himself, if it was just one game at the end of the season, he'd play him and we'd get through it. But it's not. They're in the middle of a really hectic schedule, so he has to manage his players. Now, there's another option with Nathaniel Phillips, who spent some time away with Stuttgart last season in the 2nd tier in Germany, but. Even, looking at, forget the individuals, the collective performance defensively against Midtjylland didn't really convince at all without the ball. I know they made some changes in attack, but they were carved open 2 or 3 times against that Danish team. So Sheffield United had to put them under pressure and problems as well. Anfield just last weekend, they were fortunate not to concede against Ajax in Amsterdam as well. You look in the Premier League just on raw results, Villa, Everton and Leeds have all scored twice against Liverpool this season. Their only clean sheet came against Chelsea when they played with 10 men for over half of the match as well. So I do think West Ham have got a chance here. But as Adrian says, it depends on Mikel Antonio's fitness, because the guy's been on fire since lockdown. I've been really impressed by West Ham's improvement since lockdown. Moyes deserves a lot of credit for that. But it's not just Antonio either. It's Jared Bowen's movement and is drifting in from out wide. Pablo Fornals has started to show the promise we knew he had from his Spanish days. But yeah, Moyes effectively went with 5-4-1 against City. There was a nice balance in midfield, Souček and Rice as well. Plenty of physicality. So I do think they can cause Liverpool problems, but I'd prefer to have Antonio leading the line. So I've kind of been split between do I attack West Ham plus 1.5, or do I just take the probably more obvious bet of Liverpool to win and both teams to score at 2.5-ish. So again, you kind of have extra weight to team news at the moment, which is unfortunate for this podcast. But presuming Antonio is fit, you kind of want to take the BTTS angle, because I do think Liverpool will get the job done eventually. It's
remarkable, the change in West Ham. They're 4th highest in terms of the XG expected goals. It's
bizarre.
It is. You wouldn't have thought it of a David Moyes side. David Moyes has been so cautious, hasn't he? But yeah, I do wonder if Antonio's missing, it'd be different. And also on Liverpool, the fact that they are depleted at the back. Do we think that they'll just fight fire with fire and just go gung ho and try and outshoot or outscore West Ham? Or do you think that they'll be a little bit more circumspect maybe in their approach? I tend to think they might be more watchful on home turf than perhaps they usually are, Liverpool. So I'm actually leaning towards the unders here. I saw the line was at 3.25. Yeah, 3.25.
I think you can probably buy up a small, but they're like under 3.5 is 1.84. And Mark, I know definitely for you and I, that's a very backable price. 2.05 is the 3.25. So I mean that was kind of the way I was going. I think there's a stat there that West Ham's last 4 away games have averaged 4.25 goals. So I think that's kind of built in there. But you can't always just go on averages here. It's game by game we look.
Well, apart from a mad 20 minutes against Spurs when they just fell apart, they were awful. Yeah, completely lost their discipline. Apart from that, West Ham have defended really well so far this season. They've played some tough teams. Look at their fixture list. They've played some really hard teams and not been overwhelmed. So I think they can go there with confidence to stay in the game. Do I think they'll win it? No. But I think that they can keep things relatively tight.
They only lost by 1 goal at Anfield last year as well, surprisingly so, 3-2.
So obviously there's a major caveat here with Antonio's fitness, and I would suggest some of that is built into the price here with West Ham already. So if he does go, I would imagine that to 2.05 on West Ham the handicap would go. But Mark, if we were to take even a 1 point or a half unit play here, would you prefer to come in at under 3.5, or would you prefer to take the goal and a half start with West Ham?
Right now, probably the unders. But that might change in 24 hours when team news comes out that Antonio's fit and flying. So
I'm practically bullying a pick out of you there. That's grand, no? But I'm just going to say there's a major caveat with that one at the moment. Yeah, so I mean that's going to be like a half a unit play. That's going to be one of the smaller plays.
You see, after one tough week, we're playing it safe, aren't we?
You're not. Listen. I know where the real money is made here. It's called the EFL and Europe section. That's what I'm waiting here for. We're covering these games which are generally marquee, and let's move on to I think it's an early kickoff on Saturday, is Sheffield United against Manchester City. Current betting at Matchbook at the time of recording, you can back, if you want, Sheffield United at 10.2, which is just over 9-1 in fractional terms. Manchester City at 1.32. City are laying a goal and a half start on the Asian handicap. You can back that at 1.94, and 3 is the total, slightly favouring the over. Adrian, Clarke. Sheffield United have come back down to earth in a major way this season. Still waiting on their first win.
And fine margins. I mean, again, it was a pretty good performance, wasn't it, against Liverpool? They went toe-to-toe with them, and there was no shame in that defeat at all. But you just think that, are they scoring enough goals? Are they creating enough chances? And when they do get chances, they've spurned them in games. McBurney has not been particularly lethal. Brewster was a bit quiet, wasn't he, the other night? McGoldrick isn't noted for being the most ruthless finisher. The best finisher they've got is Billy Sharp, but Chris Wilder finds it hard to give him too many starts. So, yeah, I don't think Sheffield United are going to go down, but I don't fancy them at all in this game. Not having seen City in Marseille begin to really click into gear. Gundogan's back. De Bruyne was excellent. 2 beautiful assists in that game. And even though they've got no striker in Aguero,
they looked okay. Foden and Torres look pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Ferran Torres, Foden, Sterling, Mahrez, De Bruyne. I mean, there are goals there, in my opinion. I feel as if City maybe just lacked a little bit of fitness early in the early weeks of the season. A little bit like Manchester United. They were slightly below par. But having these Champions League games is actually could prove a blessing because it's tuning them up. And that could be bad news, I think, for Sheffield United in this game. But yeah, I'm looking at City to win this with something to spare. Not a thrashing, but at least a 2-goal margin.
Mark, your thoughts and agreements? Or
no,
not?
Disagree.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, I like the Blades with the start.
Okay.
They've got 1 point on the board, but if you look at expected points, they're at 6.3, which shows they've been very unfortunate. You look at the individual games, the red card early on against Wolves, conceding twice in that. Sorry, there was an early red card. Was it Villa or Wolves? They conceded twice early in one of the other games. The better side against Leeds when they weren't able to get the win. Very unfortunate against Arsenal. Liverpool away, they gave them a right good game as well. Played really well. So the issue with Sheff United always has been creating chances and scoring goals. I know Jack O'Connell's a big miss in that back three, but last season they were aided by Henderson in goal, O'Connell too. They weren't the most prolific in the final third, but they took their chances when they were offered to them. So any sort of slight percentage downturn in both boxes can be really costly, which they found out. They've had the fewest shots on target, and scored the second fewest goals in the Premier League since returning at the start of last season. But that defence was kind of holding up in those big games. So, yeah, in terms of penetration and hurting teams, there is a concern there. But, if you don't score goals, you're not going to win games and pick up points. So it's hard to sort of justify them. But I do think they've been a little bit unfortunate. But I just think with the 1.5 goal start, they've only lost by 2 goals more in 8 of 44 games since promotion. It's only happened twice in 22 games at Bramall Lane. They won the Blades plus 1.5 won in all of their 6 home games against the Big Six last season. It's even money, and I know City were impressive in Marseille. I don't think Marseille really helped themselves with their setup with AVB going very defensive. Barely laid a glove on them really, and I still look. They're still without Aguero and Gabriel Jesus. De Bruyne is coming back and it is starting to look himself again after fitness. Defensively, I still think there are a couple of concerns there. They did sparkle for kind of half an hour against Wolves, Leicester and Leeds, and then sort of dropped off. And to me, they've looked a little bit pedestrian, a little bit predictable at times, which is quite concerning. Just to me, there's a wonder there if Pep Guardiola's influence is starting to wane a little bit, whether teams are starting to catch up a little bit and understand how to combat them. Chris Wilder is a canny guy. He knows how to get results. And I think they'll set up accordingly. I think they'll give them hell, physical. up and at 'em approach. They've got the extra rest on their side as well. And I think if you look at the underlying data as well, City are exactly where they should be, banging sort of mid-table. They've not been that great. I think they've only covered the spread in 4 of the last 13 away Premier League games as well, 3 of which came immediately after lockdown when there was no pressure, no expectation. The league had gone and most teams were already on the beach as well. So I've not made a massive case, but I think Sheffield United can make this competitive. So I think evens for me is probably.
I think you made a pretty strong case. Yeah, it's a good enough case.
Like you figured that City are going to win by at least 2 goals.
Look, you can't argue with the data. You can't argue it. But what I'm seeing with my eyes is a De Bruyne coming into form. It's a Foden looking really, really sharp. Sterling getting on the end of chances, and I'm also thinking about Fulham causing them a lot of problems in that game at Bramall Lane, particularly in the second half. That was Fulham causing Sheffield United problems. If they afford the same kind of space to City, I think they can carve them open. But yeah, I fully respect Mark's view, and that could easily happen. But I'm going with a slight hunch here that City will start to really click into gear.
We can just bet against each other post-show if you want. You don't
let's
need
do it.
to go on the exchange. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. Look,
mine's on the -1.5 handicap, 1.934. That's where I'm going anyway. But
all right, I like a bit of division sometimes. It's good to get a bit of debate. We can't always agree with each other. You both make good cases there, and the viewer or the listener today will either back Mark or they'll back Adrian. That's fair enough. Yeah. So we're not going to put in a bet there, guys, for that because it just doesn't make any sense to do so. Just before I do one, the recap of those 4 games. And one comment here I liked, Mark, about you. Watch this live on you. David Moniz said, when Mark talks stats, I just stare at the screen and smile. That's all he does.
I'm not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, David, you've come to the right place, David, because if you want stats, the one guy to go to is Mr. Mark O'Hare. And we haven't even got to the Swedish Illustrated, whatever it's called, or Swedish Alvetskin or whatever. We haven't even got to that yet.
Mark has stats on toast for his brekkie, doesn't he, before the show?
He absolutely does. He lives and breathes it. All right, guys, let's do a quick recap of those 4 games. So I think we're going to swerve on Manchester United and Arsenal as well. Mark's case was for under 2.75, whereas Adrian kind of had a more of a Manchester United, both teams to score angle. So again, you can take whatever you want out of that. However, we do have way more of a consensus on Leeds United draw no bet at 1.99 and a half a unit play on under 3.5 in Liverpool against West Ham. I kind of bullied that one myself, so don't be going too overboard with that. Again, team news is crucial there, especially for West Ham. Gentlemen, let's move on. EFL, Adrian Clarke, bounce back week. You will have a piece on insights.matchbook.com. You've had 3 selections in the last 2 weeks. You're 2-1 there. One of the games get called off last week as well, didn't it?
It did, yeah. The Oxford Swindon game got called off, and yeah, the other one was a narrow miss. But there you go. So I've got a couple of championship games to discuss on the insights column. Hopefully enjoy reading that one. But yeah, I've got another couple of selections here. I'm going to come up with a cheeky double. It's a red and white striped double. I like a little theme. It's 2 away teams.
It doesn't include Sheffield United, which is great. So we can move on to that.
Exactly. It's 2 away games, but they're 2 favourites. Sunderland to beat Gillingham. Now, the Gills have lost 2-0 at home to top half sides Hull, Pompey and Fleetwood already this season. Whenever they've come up against a strong side on home turf, they've not really laid a glove on them. They're a very direct side, Gillingham, not super creative, and they've kind of been outclassed. They've been found out a touch. And Sunderland are playing pretty well. They made some mistakes last time out at Rochdale, drew 2-2. I think they'll learn from that. It's almost as if they might get those mistakes out of their system and get back to the clean sheet mentality. The previous 3 away games, they kept clean sheets. So I'm quite confident that Sunderland could go to Gillingham and beat them. I think 1.81 is the price there. The other part of the double is Brentford. They've had an extra day's rest, or they will have had an extra day's rest over Luton Town. I just think Brentford are starting to really click into gear. They did have an off day at Stoke, but the manager picked a very random starting 11 at Stoke. He changed the system. He put players in some very strange positions, and they still almost came back to win the game once he realised the errors of his ways. Tony's on fire up front for Brentford, the man who replaced Ollie Watkins, and they are creating a lot of chances. And Luton, they're a decent enough side, but I think whenever they come up against sides of Brentford's calibre, particularly at the moment, that they might get found out. They drew with Forest last night. Forest had 10 men for around half the game. They still didn't really create too much. Luton. So Brentford to beat Luton would be 1.78. So they're both about 1.8. Combine them for the double, and it's 3.13.
Nice double, as ever. You can place that bet on Matchbook and the doubles. Yeah, red and white pinstriped double. Mark O'Hare, you're going to Serie A, mate, to take us to the continent.
Yeah, best league in Europe at the moment, averaging 3.73 goals. 3.05 last year, so a nice upturn there. Overs has clicked in 67% of the games. Amazingly, over 3.5 goals has landed in almost half of the matches.
This is Italy.
Yeah.
And,
I'll tell you something too. God bless BT for showing these games, because you know the way, like, not everyone has access to that La Liga channel, but like Serie A's where it's at. It's some great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, over 4.5 goals in 40% of the matches so far. It's absolutely bonkers. So I've kind of got 2 games from Italy, which I think will kind of follow the goals narrative. Starting at Bologna-Cagliari. Bologna are a team we've covered pretty extensively in the podcast and in my insights column. We know what they're all about. Nisa Mihajlovic likes to get the ball forward, play attacking football, score goals. Defensively, they're a mess. They've equalled the longest all-time record in Europe for the lack of clean sheets. I think it's 39 games now. So, yeah, expect Cagliari to score. Look at Bologna's record, 18 of their last 21 at home. Seen both teams score. Cagliari themselves have scored in 17 of 22 since the start of last season. They've got a new coach this season, Eusebio Di Francesco. He also likes to play front foot football. Their last 3 games have ended 5-2, 3-2 and 4-2. And I think so. Expecting a goal fest there, over 2 3/4. Around 1.73. Might be able to get over. Might be able to get 1.75 if you push it. And then Roma against Fiorentina. Roma's match on Monday night against Milan was just magnificent nonsense. Loads of goals, loads of chances, loads of cards, 2 penalties, terrible refereeing. That 3-3 followed on from a 5-2 and a 2-2. They've only kept 2 clean sheets in 21 in Rome under Paolo Fonseca. 76% of those games going over 2.5, averaging 3.62 expected goals this season in their matches as well. So loads of opportunities. And then Fiorentina, who've been a bit of a rabble for quite a while. Beppe Iacchini's starting to get under sort of real pressure. Maurizio Sarri's being linked with the role. But their last 4, they've kind of come to the party a bit. Ended 4-3, 1-2, 2-2 and 3-2. And away games under Iacchini, 9 of 13, gone over 2.5. The same figure for both teams scoring. They do pack a punch going forward as well. So I expect them to try and go toe to toe with Roma. And again, over 2 3/4 is a bet to stand out there. So 2 games where I think the goal line should be possibly a little bit higher. So if you can get a kind of 3 goals or more onside in either of those 2 games, I think you'll be in a good position.
I think it's always fun, Sally, as well, to bet on the overs, isn't it? I mean, you're always in it, aren't you? You
are. I mean, that's you see the problem with that, Adrian, and it has been the case for years, is that they're probably overbet because they do take a lot of public money. You have to be a miserable so-and-so to back unders. I know, look, I've done it plenty of times, but I am a miserable so-and-so. So, like, I mean, that does work that way. And Mark will tell you that about other sports too. It's especially with sports like the NFL and other sports, that where, you know, you think you're up and then there's just crazy stuff happens towards the end of the game and you're like, whatever.
I've had more joy with the unders of late, I have to say. You're just picking out the games where there'll be low scoring because
with the EFL, there's definitely good value there.
Absolutely. I might take that Italian goal.
What do you mean, Mike? You're definitely going to take that. You're definitely going to take those. And look, I mean, the great thing is with multiples now at Matchbook as well. If you did want to come down underneath the 2.75 and take over 2.5 in both those games, you can double them up and kind of, you know, boost your price up accordingly. But yeah, Mark, those totals seem kind of low. And even just in that Bologna game, quite quickly enough before we move on to best bets, watching that game last Saturday night, it's all like, you know, that goal disallowed in the first half, and it could have gone a very different way. But you call it so well that they just, in the second half, they just looked a bit of a rabble. And Lazio, once they got one, they got the second one. And
the second half Mihajlovic is pretty poor. So that's probably something to watch out. You know, if they do take a lead second half, Cagliari expect a comeback, because Bologna, for whatever reason, haven't been able to put a 90-minute performance together for a long time now.
It is good to see Mihajlovic back on the sideline, though, and best of luck to him. Right, let's move on to weekend best bets, gentlemen. Mark O'Hare, kick us off. Where are we going?
Yeah, Championship, and it pains me to say this, but I think Cardiff off a scratch start away at QPR on Saturday.
Yeah, that's the ultimate head over heart there for QPR fan.
It is, but a few things have transpired in the past week. But Cardiff are around 1.9 off a scratch start, which really appeals. They have been a little bit inconsistent, bit of maybe a playoff hangover, but they still are quite uncompromising, pretty punishing, live off the small margins, but it works for them. And they should be licking their lips because Rangers come into this game without their centre-half, Rob Dickie, who was sent off midweek. Lee Wallace, the left-back, who's been pretty poor anyway, he's injured. Ryan Manning, who was playing there last season, was sold. So we've got two inexperienced fullbacks, Osman Kaikai at right-back, who's been all right in fairness, but Nico Hamalainen will come in at left-back. Very sort of... very green, should we say, to the Championship. And then Connor Masterson will come in for his first start of the season at centre-half. So you've got Johan Barbe alongside him, who's an accident waiting to happen at the best of times. So defence is not looking good. In midweek, we started well at Barnsley. The red card and penalty went against us, and we just disintegrated, really. Now scored only 2 goals in 6. Warburton changed the system in midweek to try and sort things out when 2 up front. Didn't work. We're missing Eze's influence. Our best 11 is weaker, and more importantly, our best player, Bright Samuel, has refused to sign a contract and was left out in midweek. So if he is missing again this weekend, which we suspect he will be, I just don't know where the goals or the creativity is coming from. There's a downturn. There's a bad mood around the club at the moment. People think it could get worse. The only win this season was very fortunate against Nottingham Forest on the opening day. And Cardiff are just really good travellers under Neil Harris. 10 wins, 5 draws, 4 defeats since he took charge. 8 clean sheets in that time. They've scored in 16 of those 19 games as well. If you look at the shot stats last night against Derby, it looked like they were second best, but they actually hit the woodwork twice and created the better opportunities as well. I think that's 8 points from a possible 12 they've taken on the road now. They've already kept clean sheets and got results or avoided defeat at Preston, Blackburn and Forest. Not the easiest schedule at all. So although the only negative is they've got 24 hours less rest, but I think at the price, we've kind of taken a leap there, but I think Cardiff for sure.
I'll let you into a secret. That was initially going to be in my insights column. Pretty much exactly what you've just said. But I was slightly put off with the fact that Harry Wilson was missing last night. Yeah. Tomlin was out, and that it wasn't a great result at Derby. 1 apiece. I don't really rate Derby, but yeah, I'm completely with you on QPR. They're in a little bit of a bad place ahead of this game, and I think where you've said there from a scratch start, that's a very sensible bet.
Good man, Mark. Head over heart. So, Adrian, if Mark's going head over heart, you're obviously either who were Southend playing this weekend, Arsenal are obviously playing Manchester United. So you're going to do the same, right?
Oh dear, yeah. Well, I'm going to try and not oppose Spurs because Spurs are annoyingly.
I see what the angle is. Okay.
Spurs are annoyingly good at the moment, and I don't know what's happened to Jose Mourinho, but he suddenly got them playing some fairly swashbuckling football. Yep. It's remarkable, and they, they weren't at the best, were they, against Burnley, but sort of ground out a good win. One brilliant clearance off the line from Harry Kane kind of kept the clean sheet in that one. But no, as soon as I saw this fixture, Spurs-Brighton, I just thought both teams to score. It just immediately sort of leapt to the forefront of my mind. And I'll tell you why, because Brighton have been one of the most unlucky sides in the division so far. Unexpected points, which I think is a slightly questionable metric anyway, that they're 5 down on what they should be. But when you think about their performances and how many efforts they've had and whatnot, I think that's you can see that they were excellent as an attacking force, and I think that they can cause Spurs problems in this game, as they did actually in this fixture last season. But then Brighton are conceding 2 a game at the moment, so you can't look at them with any kind of confidence, especially up against Son and Kane, who are, what are they now, the second best partnership in Premier League history in terms of providing goals for one another. So yeah, I see Spurs probably winning the game, but both teams to score is my bet, 1.73.
Okay, it's short enough one, but look, if it's a good angle and you're quite confident with it, then yeah, absolutely, it sounds like a good one to be getting stuck into. All right, guys, lots and lots there as ever. Hopefully, we will get back in the black this weekend. My thanks to Adrian and Mark as ever. Don't forget, we will be back next Thursday. I think we have another couple of weeks for international break, Mark. Are we done with international breaks?
We got one more week of EFL and Champions League and Premier League, and then it's internationals.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought it was done for 2020, but here we go. All right, guys, we will chat to you again next Thursday morning. Obviously, like I said, we'll have Thursday morning after that off, but we'll see you then. Best of luck with your bets this weekend and go well. Hopefully, we'll get back in the black.